Hi, I hope you're well, safe, and healthy. Friends, we live in a difficult time. I'm not talking about Corona. Besides Corona, the Jewish people in our history, we not too long ago went through a Holocaust, went through communism. A big chunk of the Jewish people were under the grips of communism for 70 years. Even today, when we are fortunate, thank God, to live in free countries and free societies, there's a new challenge that's posed. The melting pot of a free society challenges our Jewish identity. So today is a time when we all have to feel like Jewish leaders and take inspiration and inspire other Jews and strengthen their identity. What does it take to be a Jewish leader? So our Pasha talks about the suffering of our people. Pasha Shemos talks about the suffering of our people in Egypt and also the birth of the Redeemer of the Jewish people from Egypt, the greatest Jewish leader of all times, Moshe Rabbeinu, Moses our teacher, Moses our Rebbe. What made this person to be the greatest Jewish leader of all times? The man who confronted Pharaoh, the most powerful man in the world at that time. The man that brought the superpower to their knees. God Almighty punishing the Egyptians with 10 plagues through Moshe and his brother Aaron. Eventually taking the Jewish people out of Egypt. Leading them with such love and care through the desert for 40 years. God Almighty chooses Moshe Rabbeinu to communicate his eternal Torah to the Jewish people. Although the first two commandments, each and one of us heard, our ancestors, over 2 million people heard the first two commandments from God Almighty himself, but the rest of the Torah, God Almighty communicated to us through Moshe Rabbeinu. As I explained in a class on YouTube and my Kabbalah and Chassidus Explained channel, the class is called Proof of the Authenticity of Torah. Kabbalah and Chassidus Explained, number 8, a very, very important class. What is it about Moshe Rabbeinu? Back to our topic. What is it about Moses that made him such a great leader? The greatest leader, the greatest Jewish leader of all times. What makes a great leader today? What gift and talent a leader must have? Most people will probably respond, a great leader has to be a great orator, a great speaker, right? You're a great speaker, you can inspire the people, you can uplift the people. Turns out that Moshe Rabbeinu was not just an average speaker, but he's actually below average. And it's amazing how God Almighty, and also in our Parsha, is asking Moshe Rabbeinu to go lead the people and to go confront Pharaoh and take the people out of Egypt. And Moshe is declining out of great humility. Who am I? What am I? Etc., etc. You can take a look yourself. And finally he tells him, I stammer. He didn't speak well. I stammer, I'm not swift of tongue. Moshe stuttered. Not just he wasn't a good speaker, he was probably a very poor speaker. He literally stuttered. He didn't even speak well. What made him such a great leader? So there are several answers to this. We'll just talk about one to keep the video short. The first story that the Torah tells us about Moshe Rabbeinu, what he did, the beginning is about his infancy, when he's born, etc. But as what he did, the first story, incident, what happens was that Moshe Rabbeinu grew up and he goes out to his brothers. He sees their suffering. And he sees an Egyptian man beating a Jewish man to death. And he looks here and there, he sees no one is watching, and he kills the Egyptian and hides him in the sand. literally saving the Jewish person's life from being beaten to death. What happens? Unfortunately, Pharaoh finds out. Pharaoh wants to kill Moshe. Moshe has to escape Egypt immediately, and he thus escapes Egypt. So Moshe understood that by killing the Egyptian, he's putting his life in danger. Nevertheless, he risks his own welfare. He risks his own life to save the life of his brother. He puts his welfare and his safety and security aside for the safety and security of his brother. Now, not his biological brother, a fellow Jew. This is, my friends, the first story that the Torah tells us what Moshe did. This is the great message. A leader is supposed to put himself aside for the sake of his people. And as I began this video, we could all be leaders. We all have to see to it to, well, no one is claiming to be like Moses, but a sliver, a little spark of Moses we actually all have in our soul, it says in their holy books. We have to see to it to put our welfare aside when we see another Jew in danger. I want to conclude quickly with something I remember. I was a very young child. I must have been maybe 5 or 6 years old, something like that. And I was going home with my father after a Farbrengen, after the Rebbe held a long series of Farbrengen, a gathering. At night, the Rebbe would begin 9:30 and often go p.m. and often go to 1, 2, 3 a.m. I remember my father is so touched, so moved, so impressed. I said, "Ta, what is it?" He says he's amazed how the Rebbe was literally crying, broke down crying for our brethren in Iran. It was probably at the time of the revolution, 78, 79. It was probably at that time, 79, 1979, and the Jews of Iran were terrified, etc. So the Rebbe was literally crying for Jews he never met when he was speaking about their plight. I want to wish you a good Shabbos and all the best. Remember, we all have to stand up and be Jewish leaders.